Welcome to the Men of Iron podcast, equipping men for growth in your faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. Check out menofiron.org to learn more about how you can get involved in or support the vision of changing a culture one man at a time. Thanks for listening. Here's your host, Chad Zook.
Getting older doesn't mean that you're cursed to be unhealthy. You can still be lean, confident, strong, and full of vitality, good sex drive, and manliness. Based on a lifetime's experience in coaching movement, fitness, health, and lifestyle, Vic Verdier offers a customized and holistic approach to regain what life has slowly taken away from you. Become strong and resilient again in mind and body, and implement an effective system to manage the aging process. Welcome to episode 81 of the Men of Iron podcast. My name is Chad, and I'm your host. In this episode, I talked to Vic Verdier. Vic Verdier and I talked in episode 80. This is a follow-up conversation to that, where we talk about Movenat, or move naturally. Vic was in the French Navy for 10 years. He had the opportunity to train numerous soldiers in several different topics, including close quarter combat, skydiving, long-range weapons shooting, first aid, and explosives. He also has some world records, or had some world records, in deep mixed gas technical scuba diving. That means something to someone other than me. I've never scuba dived in my life, but he has some records in that. Following up his time in the Navy, he also has become a life transformation coach, a fitness instructor, a kettlebell instructor, powerlifting and Olympic lifting coach, a breathing specialist, a nutrition specialist, and a Movenat master instructor. This conversation has a lot to do with Movenat, or it is short for Move Naturally. Well, if you've been part of the Men of Iron community, you know that Men of Iron is founded upon faith, family, fitness, finances, and friendships. And maybe here's something you don't know. Men of Iron believes firmly in mentorships. As a matter of fact, we are all about mentorships. If you would like to know more about the mentorship strategies that we offer for you as an individual or within a group or church group, you can go to menofiron.org, and we would love to have a conversation with you. But for now, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to lean heavily into the fitness pillar with the master Movenat instructor, Vic Verdier. So today on the show, again, we have Vic Verdier, and today we are going to bring out a conversation about physical fitness, specifically as it pertains to aging men, some younger men. We're going to talk about some things that Vic has done, and then also give his perspective on some things that you and I can do to stay physically fit through the decade. So, Vic, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yep. Today I want to talk about Movenat. I want to begin here. Of course, in episode 80, we talked about kind of your story. We talked about doing hard things, used some of your examples. You gave some great stories, kind of illustrating points, and we talk about the acrostic risks that you had on Instagram. We drill down into those. And today I want to talk about into your practice, your coaching practice specifically. And I want to start with Movenat. What is Movenat for the audience who doesn't know what that is? It's not something that I've talked about on this podcast. So if you could give us just a quick synopsis as to what Movenat is, and then why you chose that practice.
Okay. So Movenat was founded something like 13, 14 years ago by another French guy, Erwan Lecor. And I came soon after he founded and started Movenat in the US. And since then, we've been teaching or training people and training instructors as well in a lot of different families of movement. Okay, so Movenat means moving in nature or moving naturally, whatever you want. And it's all about natural movement, meaning the movement we used to do throughout our evolution on this planet. Things like walking, running, crawling, things like jumping, climbing, vaulting over obstacles, things like lifting and carrying things, throwing and catching things, but also things like fighting, or swimming or anything that happens in the water.
Okay.
So obviously from the very beginning, 13 years ago, everything grew up at a very steady pace. And now Movenat is pretty much all over the world. And we have workshops and certification workshops all across the planet, okay, with a lot of Movenat instructors teaching those workshops on a weekly basis, yes.
Hmm. Oh, that's kind of fascinating. And what I do know, the little bit of knowledge I have about Movenat is it actually doesn't require a lot of extra equipment. And I think that that's an excuse a lot of guys use. It's like, I don't go to the gym because I can't afford it. And yet I can't have a home gym, or I don't have room. I've got a house that doesn't allow me to have all this extra equipment. And one of the beautiful things about Movenat is, in moving naturally, is just it's a lot of body weight stuff. Am I right? I mean, that's kind of the beginner side of it. So whether it's
so
something
it's sorry, it's supposed to be, I mean, the ultimate goal is to be able to move in any kind of environment. So obviously Movenat can be practiced indoors, can be practiced in gym, but it could also be practiced in a park, or like I was doing for a long time in the jungle in Thailand, where everybody was climbing on trees and running barefoot in the middle of the jungle and having fun doing that. Okay, crazy, you know?
I see a pattern here in this conversation, Vic.
Yes. So yeah, it can be, you can pretty much improvise any kind of equipment. If you want to balance on something, it could be a log, it could be a branch, it could be a scaffolding, it could be just a curb in the street, or it could be a 2x4 in your living room. If you want to lift something, it can be a bag, a kettlebell, a sandbag, or a rock or a log. So you can pretty much practice Movenat anywhere. And you can also practice Movenat anytime. And I think that's something very important, because the usual mindset when it comes to training is, I go to the gym, I spend an hour, and I do that 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and that's about it. Movenat has a very different approach to that. You can pretty much train Movenat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay? Because the way you sit right now, okay, can maybe be optimized. Okay. Or you can change the way you sit, or you can change your position, or you can work on something that is that lacks a bit of mobility.
Now, does it require
everything?
Does Movenat require the recovery time that a normal, like say, strength training type of, or weightlifting, or even cardio that it requires? Does it require? You said that it can be done 7 days a week, 24/7. Is it because it actually your body doesn't need that much time to recover in between workouts? Is that what you're getting at, or no?
Okay, so it depends on the intensity of the workout, and it depends on what you do during your workout. When I say it can be practiced 24/7 is the way you stand, your position, okay, can always be optimized. The way you stand, you can be standing a bit taller with your shoulder in the proper position, your head in a better position as well. It's not, people don't take that as a workout. Okay, it's not something you need to recover from. Even if you work a bit your body and you work a lot your brain, okay, it's not a workout in a more conventional sense of the word. Or the more conventional meaning. But it could be also, it could have also a lot more intensity. Okay, you can have a Movenat session where you crawl and lift and climb and jump, and then yes, you definitely need some recovery.
Okay,
but you can spread some movement skills throughout the day without necessarily taxing your body and taxing your brain.
So what I'm hearing in this, it's Movenat, of course, is a way of exercising, just a way of having physical fitness, but also it's a lifestyle, it sounds like. Like, say, for instance, an example of Movenat, if I heard you correctly, and just to allow the audience to maybe gain a better grasp of this, it's literally me sitting in this chair right now. I'm not sitting in the back. I'm literally sitting up, trying to maintain a different posture. And this is what I do while I listen to podcasts. So you're saying this is a Movenat response. I'm basically a Movenat instructor. Yeah. That's basically what I'm saying right now.
Congratulations.
No, but this is just an example of choosing to not to be lazy and just kind of lean into the chair, but instead I sit, shoulders back, chest out, kind of like maintaining a strong core. So this is something as simple as this, maybe even in an office environment, is a Movenat position. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. What I mean by that is one of the core principles of Movenat is efficiency. Okay, we always try to be as efficient as possible. Efficient means a lot of different things, and it's a bit counterintuitive sometimes. If your movement has a goal, okay, meaning you want to go from point A to point B, okay, you can walk, you can crawl, and so on, and that will be effective. You will manage to go from point A to point B, you will reach your goal, okay? Being efficient is being able to use the least amount of energy, meaning fine-tuning your movement, perfecting your movement, to be able to do it without spending a lot of energy, with grace, agility, with power if you need some power, with strength if you need some strength. But the idea is to optimize the movement. And you can optimize pretty much anything you do in life as long as you're moving. Okay? When you're sitting, the way you sit, the way you stand up, the way you carry your grocery bag, or your backpack or your purse or whatever, the way you climb a flight of stairs, the way you walk in the street, around people or around your environment, all those things are part of Movenat. So Movenat can be really intensive if you want to, but it could also be part of your daily life in pretty much everything you do.
And this is really an incredible thing because, you know, even for a guy, I know that you advocate in your coaching practice is geared towards men my age. I'm going to be 47 here in a couple of months. So men my age and older. And I know that, but yet what you're advocating, even with Movenat, goes down to maybe it's the dad who has little kids and he takes them to the park. I mean, the park is an optimal place for Movenat, from what I understand.
Yes.
Whether it's the equipment that the kids are playing on or playing around, but it's easy to kind of like roll on the ground with your kids and bring your kids into that type of environment, which I think is a great way of kind of bringing the family fitness dynamic in. Because if a man just goes to the gym, I go to the gym, I'm an empty nester now. My daughter just left for college. My son is, I'm actually going to be a grandpa here in several months, but it's like, I'm beyond that. But most, guys that are going to be listening to this podcast are busy. They're busy with life. They have kids and they're trying to maximize and optimize what they do. So maybe a guy, they just can't up and just go to the gym, or a guy can't just up and say, well, I'm going to go run 3 miles because I can't be gone for 30 minutes or an hour. But instead it says, no, I want to optimize my time. So I'm going to take my kids to the park and I'm actually going to put together some natural movement, and I'm going to invite my kids into that and be very specific and kind of strategic about that. I think that's one of the, for me anyway, it's a huge selling point for Movenat.
Okay. You understand already some of the principles behind Movenat. Movenat is really for everybody. And I think that's very important to understand. For many people, when you say, oh, I want to train, I want to get fit, a big part of the population will tell you, it's not for me. Okay, I'm too old, I'm too big, or I'm too whatever, too small, too whatever. Okay, people find a lot of reasons and sometimes excuses not to train. Okay. But Movenat is really a practice that can be done by anyone, from kids to elderly. men, women of any shape, any form. And I think that's because this podcast is also about family. I think that's also a good way to bring the family together because everybody can practice at the same time. Everybody can play at the same time, and therefore everybody can have fun at the same time and together. So I think that's a very important concept behind Movenat as well.
Yeah, and busy guys, they need to optimize. They need to learn how to integrate as many things as they can because, it comes down to priorities. And sometimes for men, even the type of men that you'd be helping with the coaching practice, the reason why they go to you maybe because they've had years of neglect and now they look at their life. Maybe they had a health scare, or maybe they, something happened. Maybe they found out something that happened in their family, like a family line issue, a health issue and scare. So now they're like, now I need to get things right. So I love to advocate for the guy before they get to that point too, and say, hey, what can we do to help optimize that guy's life so he doesn't get to, diabetes and being overweight and then having all these other compounding issues. But I'm glad that people like you are there for everybody.
I think fortunately and unfortunately, I know, we became sedentary. Okay, we became more comfortable. I mean, comfort is, I would say, everywhere around us. We spend a lot of time sitting. Okay, we are sitting right now. Okay, and therefore there's a lot of damage done by the modern world or the modern lifestyle somehow. And I think Movenat is a good solution to fix this problem. Because as I said, we all lack mobility, we all lack strength, we all lack explosiveness, we all lack resistance, we all lack endurance. Yeah, we all lack a lot of different attributes. But just managing to fix the damage of our daily life by incorporating some Movenat practice, some movement snacks throughout the day that can take a minute or 5 minutes of your time, and that can be done anywhere at any time. I think that's big. I think that's very useful. And we have so many examples of people who've done that and who really changed the course of their life.
Yeah, I agree. And even, just thinking about maybe the guy who travels for work, who's going to be listening to this podcast, and he's listening to it while maybe sitting in the airport or, on a commute somewhere. And I think about that guy. He just can't always just go to the gym. So he's going to drop in wherever he's going to be. And he may be there for the night. He may be there for 2 days. And Movenat is something that is adaptable no matter where you are. You can always find a park. You can, in a hotel room, you can do something to kind of bring those practices. So it helps kind of eliminate some excuses while creating opportunities for men to grow. And again, what we talked about before is men doing hard things. And one of the hard things for us to do is to be intentional about our physical fitness and our nutrition. I know you're kind of an expert in nutrition as well. So would you say that combatives are something that men should strive to grow into, or even, men who are maybe 30, 40 years old? Do you think it's too late for them to begin combatives, or do you think that combatives are something that should be incorporated into a man's life?
I would say there's no age for that, because there is no age to be in a dangerous situation.
Okay.
It's not because you're 30 that you might have to find someone or several aggressors. Okay. You can be in a dangerous situation whatever age you are. And I would say the older you are, the more risk you have, because the more risk of being selected as a prey by any kind of human predator. A human predator will select their target, their prey, based on age, level of fitness, and opportunities, environment, and so on. So I don't think there's an age for learning some combatives. I'm not talking about training MMA and being able to fight in the octagon for the UFC. I'm talking about being able to fight for your life or fight for the things you want to fight for, like your family, your kids, and being able to do something. Because sometimes you don't have to do things, but sometimes you do.
Right.
Because you don't really choose. Okay. Mm-hmm. You are not the one in control of the situation, at least not initially. If you start a fight for no reason, then you are a jerk. Okay.
Right.
But if you are in a bad situation because some bad people decided to target you and get your wallet, yeah, you can comply, you can escape. And that's always a good option. But sometimes you might have to fight because people have different intentions, and it's not always just about your wallet.
Yeah, I have a good example of that as myself. Years ago, my wife took me, it was like a special thing. We went to a Miami Dolphins football game, and that's the professional football team that I like. So we went down there and went to a game, and we were leaving. And as we left the stadium, the Dolphins lost, so that sucked. But I got over it. We walked out, and of course, it's the end of the game.
Think about it.
Right. I still remember it very well. We lost, but so we're walking outside the stadium, and I myself was sober. My wife was sober, but it's at the end of the game, and you could tell that there was a lot of partying that had been going on beforehand, and then during the game. Well, as we're walking out, they played the Bills, and this Bills fan came up, and he and a couple buddies, and he came up to me. I'm just minding my own business, walking to the car, head down. We lost, suck it up, moving on. But he comes up, and he's just in a drunken stupor, and he's getting all aggressive towards me. And so he's like wanting to get in my face, and he's yelling things back at me. And I just kind of put my head down, and I'm like, hey, this is, I don't know if I know what I'm trained to do, but I don't know what he's trained to do. And he's drunk and he's got buddies. So I'm surveying the whole thing, and I'm thinking, the risk analysis here is this. The best thing for me to do is leave. I mean, and get out of that situation as best I can. And yet, but you have to use restraint. So I think in many ways, when it comes to learning combatives or learning any sort of was it a martial art or striking or something, it's a matter of knowing when to use it and when not to use it. So in no way are you advocating for brutality, just as I'm not. But in my analogy or my story is, when I left, I got in a situation where I was like, there is a strong chance that I'm going to have to defend myself or my wife, even if it means that I lose, but not to just be a mark and kind of be played out. So I walked away, and he got in my face. And just about the time that I thought he was actually going to strike me, his buddy was a little bit more sober than him, pulled him aside and basically diffused the whole situation. But what I tried to do was, I recognized it, situational awareness, know what's going on. This guy's drunk. Who knows if he's trained or if he's not trained, or if he's armed or not armed. And all I wanted to do was just kind of, after the risk analysis, just walk away. But yet there's a moment in time to where I think all of us maybe have a moment like that, where we're like, okay, I might have to actually defend myself. I might not to be the aggressor, but to defend myself or my wife. I heard you talk about self-defense, and I thought your perspective on self-defense was interesting. You're on Angela's podcast. Angela and I are friends on Mission Manhood podcast, and we've talked about doing other type of work, collaborating, just what she's doing, what I'm doing. And I like the work that she's doing, but you talked about self-defense, and if I may have heard this incorrectly, but you actually said that, I believe you said you don't like the term self-defense.
No, I don't. No, I don't, because I like to be proactive.
Okay.
Self-defense means you react to a situation.
Okay.
As much as I want, as much as I can, I would like everybody to be more proactive. And more proactive means a lot of different things. More proactive means, like in your situation, being able to see the event coming, the situation coming.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do that, you have to open your eyes. And that's a big part of the Movenat combatives. We learn to recognize some pre-situation indicators, if you want. Okay. You need to open your eyes to be able to see it coming instead of having your head buried in your phone, for example. Being proactive means also, if you see it coming, finding a way out. It could be a physical way out, like turning around and escaping, okay? Or it could be a way out with communication, diffusing the whole situation, de-escalating. That's still proactive, okay? And then if you see that the situation, you will not get out of the situation without a fight, okay? Here again, it's being proactive. It's being able to fight, but fight with enough intensity to end the fight quickly. Because the longer the fight, the more chance of being injured. That's just statistics, okay? If you can end the fight within a few seconds, you have a lot less chance of being injured, or the people with you being injured. But if the fight gets on and on and on, the thing is, you never know exactly how a situation will turn out. Exactly like in your example, there might be friends, okay? And then you have to fight against several people, or there might be weapons involved, and you don't necessarily know that from the get-go. Okay, weapons happen; they just happen, and therefore being proactive is pretty much the opposite of self-defense. So that's why I don't really like this word, and because that's not what we do in the Movenat combatives.
Well, I appreciate that, because it's just a matter of being proactive instead of being reactive. And I think that when people talk about self-defense, they automatically kind of like put two opposing views. It's either you're being self-defense or you're the aggressor. And I think that that is not true, but I think that's where people's minds go. It's like there's one person who's the aggressor or one person who's just defending themselves. So you kind of diffuse all of that in what, if I am gathering this correctly, you diffuse all of that and say, it's not a matter of being self-defense. It's a matter of being proactive. It's situational awareness. It's understanding that sometimes the best thing sometimes the only thing to do is to stay there and tuck your way out or fight your way out of a situation as quickly as you can, or just run, or just do whatever you can do to diffuse with that situation, which I really appreciate that too. And I think that, when I heard you say that, and when Angela asked that question, it just really made me think, because many times we again have those two opposing views. We think one person is the aggressor, which you're not advocating for us to be the aggressor.
Obviously not.
Right, of course. And you could be the aggressor with all the training you've had. You could be the aggressor, and that's the thing. And I think that men have to have their power under restraint. I think that men ought to be powerful, and I think they're made to be powerful. I think that's the reason why we have the masculine frame that we do, why we have testosterone that we do, and being able to do just the hard things that men do, which we've talked about, at length. But I think part of that also is this awareness piece, and not to be the aggressor, but to understand that for us, we have to be proactive. And this even conveys down to our kids, because I think one of the messages it is one of the messages that I've told to my daughter specifically is, I said, when you're out in a public place, don't have your head in your phone. Know where you're going, walk with purpose, walk with confidence, and don't walk alone. If you don't have to be alone, don't be alone. Not to make herself, vulnerable in those situations. But I think there's really a lot there that people, men and people generally, they're so busy with their attention being somewhere else that makes them targets.
Yeah, I think it's we live in a very entertainment-focused society, if you want. We are completely bombed by information and through a lot of different channels. It's true that this little device is wonderful in some aspect and really bad in others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we tend to become slave of all this flow of information and this entertainment culture. And you can see that pretty much anywhere. You can't see anyone queuing somewhere at the supermarket for more than 2 minutes without seeing the phone being pulled out of the pocket and so on. Mm-hmm. You see that in cars, you see that in pretty much everywhere. And there's a lot of problems with that. We talked about the lack of situational awareness when it comes to potential aggressors. I see it on a daily basis because I only travel on motorcycles, and I see drivers holding their phone while mm-hmm. driving without paying attention to anything around them. And I think that's a problem. That's a real problem that we haven't really fixed yet. And when it comes to combatives, we just bury our head in the phone or bury our head in any kind of entertainment. And I mean, 200 years ago in Europe, where I am right now, you couldn't travel from one village to the other one without being scared of bad guys, wolves, creatures, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Now you can walk pretty much anywhere, and you see people who don't really pay attention to anything. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the first step in the Movenat combatives I teach is learning to pay attention, learning to recognize the situation, reading body language. And I mean, it's very difficult right now at the moment to read body language. You see a lot of people with masks on. Put a mask and a pair of sunglasses, and you have absolutely no idea what's happening in someone's face.
It's true, yeah.
Okay? And that's a problem that a lot of police officers I know have to deal with on a regular basis. They can't read body mm-hmm. language. They can't read people's face and people's intentions. So that's one of the first things we do during the combatives, learning to see the situation coming, and then learning to either run away, escape, because there's an old saying that you win 100% of the fights you've never fought. It's always easier not to fight than fighting and ending up in a situation you have no control on.
Yeah, well
because
said.
You never know what will happen. You never know, as I said before, weapons happen, friends happen, bad falls happen. Mm-hmm. And even if you win and there's no winner, you still have to deal with maybe some injuries, maybe to deal with the police, maybe to deal with the legal system, because surprisingly enough, bad people might sue you mm-hmm. because you kick their ass. So if you can avoid a fight, avoid a fight. Mm-hmm. But as a man, you have to know when to avoid it and when to go for it. And if you decide that it's time to fight, you really need to know how to fight efficiently, fast, with power, and get rid of the situation.
Excellent. Well, Vic, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this, and it's been really helpful for me kind of gaining some understanding on what Movenat is and just the other elements of just kind of what you're saying about the just the elements of being a man, which mm-hmm. I think is really profound. And so we just thank you so much for your time, kind of stepping into this conversation all the way from France and you probably had a lot of other things that you could be doing, but you chose to be talking to us today. So I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. And then also, if a guy would like to maybe get connected with your coaching practice, how would a guy do that?
There's different ways. The easiest one, of course, you can go to movenat.com, where I teach some certifications and also teach some combatives and aquatics. You can go to my own personal website, vicverdiercoaching.com. As you mentioned several times, I'm very active on Instagram, and my Instagram page is, our account is at Vic Verdier Coaching, and in social media in general, YouTube channel and things like that.
Awesome. Well, Vic, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This Men of Iron podcast is brought to you by Men of Iron. If you're interested in getting involved in or supporting the vision of changing a culture one man at a time, or you simply want to know more about our Strong 27 mentorship experience, Equilibrium retreats, Anchored Man video series, or Men of Iron Plus, go to menofiron.org.